Hello, this is Jan from the Fuzzy Duckling. We're going to start working on chapter number 4 of our Learning to Draw series. And in this lesson, we will also do project number 7, which is this pretty flower botanical picture here. Now, the shape we're going to be working on, I'm just going to call it a petal shape because that's exactly what it looks like. It's petals. So let's start learning how to draw a petal shape. You will need, for the drawing itself, you will obviously need a pencil and an eraser. And if you just need to use a plain old yellow pencil that has an eraser on the end, that's the way to go. Personally, I love my mechanical pencils. It's nice not to have to sharpen every few seconds. And these erasers that you can buy at the store, these great big long erasers, can be really handy too if you do a lot of erasing. And there's no negative feelings about erasing. Erasing is good. And we'll show you a little bit about erasing later. If you want to do the picture, you will need some markers and colored pencils and a good black pen. And I don't think it shows here, but I also did some glitter stickles right here in the center of my flower. But that's something that you don't have to do. But if you have some glitter, it makes a very pretty picture. All right, on to the petals. You've learned how to draw squares and rectangles and circles and ovals. If you haven't looked at these lessons, go back to our earlier chapters and lessons, and we will talk about drawing those things. This time we're going to learn how to draw what I call a petal shape. And it's really just an oval that has kind of an end on it. Now it can have, say, a rounded end like that, or if it's coming up against something, you just draw it like that. See how easy that is? It's just an oval, kind of like that. It's always smaller at one end. You can also lots of times see them like this, and I call this more of a teardrop shape, where the end comes to a point. Whatever method you use, it's just like an oval that has a small end to it. And they're usually long. They can be different lengths. It can be like this. But that is your simple petal shape. I'd suggest you try this a few times before we start our project. And our project, as you saw, was drawing a flower. So let's also practice once before we start on our good picture, drawing a flower made of petal shapes. So, first thing you'll want to do is draw a circle. Now this is the center of our flower. Just like that. Good try. Now, when you go to drawing on our art project, you'll want to do your first drawings very light, sketch them lightly. Now on this one, I'm going to try to draw kind of heavy so you can see what we're doing. So we have our circle, and now draw a petal shape right off of that circle like that. In fact, it's kind of, at first will look like an airplane propeller. You boys who like airplanes, you'll understand that. Now, right off on the other side of that, we want to draw another one. And try to draw as close to the size as this one that you can. And it can be kind of hard. If you don't get it the same size, just erase and try again. Now, another thing to think of when you're drawing flowers is that if you go out and look at a flower, you'll find out, especially in nature, nothing's ever exactly perfect. These petals may look different. This one may look different than this one when you look at it on a real flower. This one might be a little smaller or a little bigger, or a bug will have eaten off of it and there might be a broken spot on it. So don't overly worry about getting each one of these petals exactly the same. Now, the next step we want to do is come here. It's like a cross. We want to make a set of petals here. Just like that. And then we're going to come straight across from it and make another set. As you can tell, these are not perfect. Now, I call this flower that we're doing right now our basic flower. This is the first flower we're learning to do in our classes. And there's lots of different flowers. You know that from looking outside in your gardens and in the parks. There's so many different shapes for flowers. But we're going to start out with this simple basic flower first and get some practice in making petals and leaves. So this is kind of a skimpy looking flower. So let's add a petal in between the petals that we've drawn. See, there's a petal. We'll add one across from it. Now I'm going to move my paper and we're going to draw a set of petals this direction. Now look at that. There is our first basic flower. Looks kind of neat, doesn't it? And every one of these petals is just a little bit different, but it looks fine when we do our art, just like it will in nature when every petal is not exactly the same. Now you'll find that when we do our drawings, we might do different things with each one of these flowers to make them look different. Lots of times there's kind of a seam up the center of a petal. We could always add that. See, that already makes that look more flower-like. There we go. Sometimes there's a little bit of a different color on the tip of a petal that we could add in. Just like that. Now we haven't added the color yet, but there's a spot for it. We could always color it in with our lead pencil color. There we go. There's so many things you can do to make this basic flower really pretty. And it's so easy. Another thing, and you'll see this on the flower we're doing in our project, you could put another petal shape inside a petal shape and just do this. And then when you color it, that can be a little bit of a different color. Look how neat that looks. And now it's starting to look like, well, this should be something hard to draw. But it's not. It is so simple to draw when you follow the steps for drawing it. Look at that. And there's all kinds of things you can do about the center. You could just color that center solid. Now, in the one I did, I like to make tiny little circles going around this edge. Because that's something really neat. You can color that a different color. And then put a dark color in the center of that around those little circles. And it looks like a flower that has some little seeds or stamens or something in the center of it. Flowers are so much fun to draw. So the other thing we need to look at real quick before we move on to our project is the leaves. Flowers usually have some kind of leaves. And oh my goodness, there's so many different kind of leaves out there. But again, we're going to start out with a simple basic leaf first in this lesson. And the easiest leaf to draw can be another petal shape. There's a leaf. Usually in a leaf, there is a line down the center, a vein down the center, whatever you'd like to call it. Now you could stop right there and color this however you like it. I like to add a few more little veins going out to the edge of my leaf. And there's lots of other things that can be done, but this is our basic leaf. So we're just going to stop at doing that right now. And in some later lessons, we're going to learn other flower shapes and other leaf shapes because there's a lot of them out there. So, are you ready to start our next project? You'll need a good piece of drawing paper. Now remember, if you're going to use watercolors or a lot of markers, you'll need a nice heavy sheet of paper. In fact, oops, I just knocked my, there we go. Try to stay in camera here. I have a nice heavy piece of mixed media that I'm going to use for mine. Now, I didn't use mixed media when I made this one, and look at the back, which it's no problem because I'm not, going to use the back of this for anything. And also, something I noticed, I drew this flower. Do you notice what I did? Which I consider a mistake. my whole flower is not centered in the center of my picture here. And it bothers me that it's not centered. Everything's over here, and there's all this space here. And what's something I could do about that? If I saw that and I had drawn enough, I didn't want to do it over. One way I could have solved it would have been to put another flower right here to balance it out. Or I could have put, hey, a butterfly here. That would look neat. Or I didn't worry too much about it because this particular flower, I intend to cut it out all the way around the leaves and the petals, and I want to put this in my scrapbook. I want to paste it on top of a pretty piece of scrapbooking paper and maybe put a paper doily or something under it and then put a picture here. So I have plans for this one, and it doesn't really matter if it was centered or not. But you want to think about that when you do yours. Does it matter to you if it's centered? If it does, you'll want to kind of think about maybe moving this flower over here a little bit so that there's room to center it. So that's something you need to think about when you start out. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to frame it? And if you want to frame it, be sure your piece of paper fits the frame you have for it. Or do you want to just put it in your art journal? That's really neat if you keep these in your art journal. Do you want to cut it out and use it something else? But really, probably this first flower, let's just get into it and give you some practice for doing this. So, let me get my good piece of paper over here and my pencil. See if you can see this most of the time, because I'm going to try to pretty much draw this. So are you ready to go? Got your paper? Got your eraser? Let's start. The first thing we're going to do is draw the very center circle for this big top flower. So I have to kind of think in my mind, how big am I going to draw this flower? In fact, it's not always a bad idea to draw a circle to show you where that is. Try to look to see if I should have had that. Is there something here that's about the size of the flower I want to draw? My flower needs to be bigger than that. I just eyeballed it. Oh, I bet this would work just great. Let's see if this lid's about the size of... Oh, it's perfect. So I'm going to come over here. Now remember, we need to sketch. Means lightly draw, because you're going to erase almost all of these lines if you're going to end up coloring this picture and inking it. So very lightly, just make a light circle around here. This way we'll get our picture kind of balanced before, and you won't have the problem I had where it wasn't where it should have been. Okay, we're going to put one flower there, and as you see here, we have two flowers. I'm going to go ahead and make the circle for my second flower. We're going to have it about there. How's that look? Very lightly. This will help you. I didn't do it when I made this other one, and I should have. Right, it caught the fact that it wasn't in the center of my piece of paper. Now, you can use anything you want. A cup, a can, a plastic lid. Fact is, I keep all kinds of plastic lids and things in my art room because you never know where they'll be handy, either for drawing a circle, keeping paint on it, all kinds of things. All right, now we need to make our little center circle in the center of these. And I really think you could eyeball that. There's ways you can measure it out, but we don't want it. You know what? Doing a lot of measuring sometimes just takes the fun out of art. And again, we already said it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. And I don't think I'm coming out perfect at all. See, there's a little more space down here. And we'll go put my circle in down here. And we're sketching too. Remember, this is just something we will be erasing. So let's come in now. Let's make our petal shape up here. Now, it really doesn't matter where you do your first petal. You could do your first petal over here or over here, wherever you want to make your first petal. Just be sure when you do your second petal, you come opposite and make your second petal here. and draw very lightly. Now, it'd be better if I was drawing a little lighter yet, but I want you to be able to see what we're doing. I'm going to come and do my second set of petals here. The one that makes everything look like a propeller on a plane. Now come straight across. And let's do this petal. Now feel free to stop your video and get your petals drawn. And then start it again and we'll keep going. Now you can notice very plainly that this petal is a lot bigger than this petal. And that bothers me just a little bit. But since I'm sketching, I can come right in here, erase it, and make my petal a little bit bigger. It's still not as big, but you know, it really won't matter. Now I'm going to come in here and make this petal. And don't worry if you go outside this line. Again, this was just a guideline. Straight across from there. That assured you that you knew where that flower was going to go and you had enough room to do it. Come in here, make this petal. This, we've got our flower shape almost done. And now straight across, and there's our basic flower. Isn't that easy? There we go. Now let's come down and do the same thing to this flower in the bottom. I'm going to start it at a little different angle so that it doesn't look like they're both exactly sitting the same way. They wouldn't in nature. If you were looking at two flowers, the petals would be facing different directions like that. That's something, sometimes when we draw more than one thing in our art, we get so uptight about making them exactly alike. But that's not nature. Nature doesn't do that. It does sometimes. I take that back. But usually when you look at a flower, you're not going to see all the petals being exactly the same. And if they grew that way, bugs and nature and wind will change it for them. Okay, there's my propeller shape. Let's add these flowers in the middle. Flowers, petals. Here we go. I said, don't worry about being perfect. You're sketching. And, you know, don't worry about being perfect ever. We're human and we can't exactly draw perfection no matter how good we are. And really, pictures that aren't perfect are prettier. There we go. We have our two flowers. Now, let's quickly, just to get all of our basic shapes in, draw our stem. Now, I guess that's one shape we haven't learned to draw because we haven't done a whole lot with just long lines. But there's always some kind of long line that isn't a square or a circle. It's not an oval. It's not a petal shape. They're just lines. And kind of that's what our stem is. So I think we're going to have our stem come out like this because we want to hook this flower to it. So pick in between one of your petals where you want your stem to come out. Remember, your stem will need to be a, you know, it's more than a line. There's some breadth to that where you can color it. So let's draw the right side of our stem and let's do it a little curve. Just a relaxed curve. Now, this is going to look a little different. This one I'm doing than this one because I drew this flower over farther. So my stem won't be as far behind this second flower as it is in my first one. But that's okay. All right, let's draw the other side of our stem. Just kind of, it's like a pathway or something. Coming down here. Let's try to keep it kind of even. The stems usually don't vary a lot. They'll get a little bit bigger as they get close to the ground. There we go. There's a stem. Now I want this stem to come out here so it can meet this stem. Two roads meeting. So there we go. We met right here. I'm going to bring this on down. And now for this picture, we're not worrying about what's down here, whether there's grass or other flowers. We're just going to, I'm going to make this a little fatter. Try to artistically make an end to the stem. There we go. An end to the stem. There's our little phrase for the day. Look at that. We have almost all of our basic shapes. Now, let's add some leaves. Now, for my flower here, I put leaves straight across from each other. And if you go out and look at plants, a lot of times that's how they do it. And other times they don't. There'll be one here, and one here, and one here. But today, we're going to do them straight across from each other, because it kind of looks neat here, I think. So, let's come along. Let's draw our leaves on this side. And again, petal shapes. There we go. A leaf. I'm going to do another leaf here. Now, how many you do is entirely up to you. This is your flower, and you can draw it however you want to draw it. Always remember that in art. No matter what anyone says to you, it's your art. And you draw it the way you want to. Now, I did these a little closer together than I did over here, which means I have to decide, do I want to stop at 3 leaves? I think I'll do 4 leaves this time. This is my flower, and if I want to have 4 leaves on it, and you could do 1 leaf, 2 leaves, 3 leaves, 4 leaves, whatever you want on your flower. There we go. Now I need to do the ones opposite. Now you might find when you come doing the ones on this side that you're going to run into the other flower. I don't know if I will. Mine might fit in just right, but if you notice on this one, when I drew these, they ran right into flower petals of the other flower. They went behind. So gently just go ahead and sketch them in, even if you're going over the petal. Remember, you're going to be erasing a lot of this because you want it to show, you want to see where it will really go. See, right off. This leaf went over that petal. That's okay. Go ahead and draw it in for now. Be sure and draw it in lightly so things will be erased and look good. There's another one. That one fit right in there. See what this one will do. Nope, this one will go over a petal of that flower. Good, because that gets to show you what I'm talking about. We just went ahead and drew it right in there. See what this one does. It went over a petal too. There we go. I had several go over it. Look at that. We have our basic picture all drawn out. Now, this would be a good place to stop your video if you're not to this point and get to this point before we do some more. So, if you're still with me and if you're back, let's start. Yeah, this is what we need to do. We need to decide what is the thing in this picture that's closest to you, because the thing that's closest to you will be in front of something else like this here. In this picture, this flower was the one that was closest to me. So the leaves that overlapped had to go behind. So I erased part of those leaves. And here I decided this flower was ahead of this leaf too. So the leaf had to go behind. Now I'm going to try to help you figure that out. Let's start here where I have this leaf going over the front of this. You have to decide, do you want this leaf to be the closest to you or this petal? Now, I want this petal to be the thing that's closest to me. So I'm going to erase the overlapping part of my leaf petal. Just like that. Now that's what it's going to look like the leaf is behind when you finish your picture. Now I'm going to kind of draw these a little darker so you can see what I'm doing here. There. Now we'll have a real good erase before we put colors in. But now do you see how that is? We got rid of that line. That's why you want to draw so lightly, because there's lines we're going to erase. So there's many times when erasing is good. Never think erasing is a bad thing. Erasing is making something good. Now, look at this. I have this leaf going over this petal. But I want this whole flower to be the thing closest to me. So I need to erase part of this leaf that goes behind that petal. See what I mean? It's going behind the petal. We won't be able to see it, so we need to erase it. Now I need to kind of again sketch my leaf back in there. Try to keep this light so that everything can be erased when you want to, because now you see that you never know what you might need to erase. See, now it looks like this flower is in front of this petal. And we have one more that we have to take care of that way. This petal will be in front because it's closest to me, so I have to erase part of this leaf that is behind and that I can't see anyway because it's behind it. Now this might take a little thought process when you're figuring this out in your picture. And to be honest, if you drew a little smaller, a little wider, you might have your leaves never even going in front or behind. But it's kind of neat because then it shows you something. It shows you a depth to your picture, that there's some things that are close and there's some things that are farther away. And the farther away things kind of slide in behind the things that are in front of you. And it's good to show that in art because it gives your picture some depth and it makes it look like, oh, that's how it is in real life. But you do have to figure out, think about it, what's closest to me and what's farthest away. And to make it look further away, sometimes it gets behind things. Okay, let's see, now that we've done that. You know, just for comfort's sake, there's a lot of lines here we could get rid of and make our picture look better. These circle lines that we just drew to guide us for our petals, we need to erase those. So I'm going to start out right now and just get rid of those extra circle lines. Now, your erasing here doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll help your picture look better and it'll help you keep straight what you're doing. So I'm lightly going to get rid of all the extra line here that I drew around that plastic lid. And then we're going to make another layer on our picture. I call that layers. It really isn't layers. But my first layer like this is always your basic shape. And I know now that this fills my piece of paper the way I want it to. It's not all lopsided. Now, if we were doing something extra, it'd be kind of neat to put a butterfly or something there. Or as we go through these lessons coming up where we learn to do all kinds of different flowers, we could add a different kind of flower, make a whole page full of flowers. Just think how much fun. About to get it here. Erase all these little spots. Some of it goes over the stem there because of my circle. There we go. What do you think about that? All right, now once I have my basic shapes laid down, I'm going to do what I call another layer. I'm going to go add in some extra details that aren't there right now. And I think the details I'm going to add next is what we did to our petals. I added that extra petal shape inside and a straight line inside it because it made it fun to color that. So let's come over here and start at the center of your flower and just make an extra petal inside. Now you make these the size you want. You may want to make them the size I did, or you might want to do something where you just do it short like that. This is your flower and you're making up your flower. This isn't any specific kind of flower. There's flowers something like this. But this is your flower that you're making up. Now later on, if you're trying to draw a specific flower, say you want to draw a daisy or a rose or a chrysanthemum, oh, there's so many different kind of flowers, a dandelion, then you'll have to pay attention to how they really are put together, what shape their petals are and what the details are. But right now, we're just making up our own flower to practice making flowers, and it's really fun to make up your own flower anyway. Whatever your name is, call it that kind of flower. I'll name this one I'm doing after me, the Jan flower. Or the fuzzy duckling flower. So put on our petals inside, and that's very easy to do. Look how that fancied up that flower already. Now I'm going to do the same thing in this one because these flowers are all hooked to the same bush here, or branch. Now, if I was putting other flowers in that weren't hooked and weren't the same flowers, I could do something different with it. But these are supposed to be pretty much the same kind of flower. The basic fuzzy duckling flower. How's that? Now, I didn't quite like the way I drew that, so I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out now. Remember, we're going to be erasing a lot of this, so I can change things as I'm going through if I want to. It's my flower, right? It's your flower, too. We about got all of our secondary little petal shapes in. Now, one thing about drawing, try not to get too uptight about it. And also remember at this stage to draw lightly so you can change things. That way you don't have to worry about getting it perfect right now. You can change it later if it's not the way you want it. Now let's go through each one of those petals now and make that straight line. I'll show you here. We just did these. Now let's do this straight line here. You're not too far from being done with the drawing part of this. And some of you may want to just leave this as a pencil drawing. And then some of you, like me, may want to go ahead and add some pretty colors to it. And I'll show you how to do that too. There's our lines. Okay, let's come down here, add these in. See me looking around funny once in a while. It's just me checking to be sure everything's on the video okay and that everything's pointed the right way. All right. Now let's work on our flower centers a little bit. I'm going to just make this a little darker so that I can see where my line really is. I'm going to put little circles that we did on our practice flower around that. Do you see what I'm doing here? See if I can get it to where you see it. I'm drawing tiny little circles around the inside along that edge. Do you see how I did that? Then when we ink it or color it, we're going to make this dark with this. Well, in mine, I made gold glitter in there. But you can do whatever you want with yours. Now, if you don't like that, just keep this center the way it is, and you could color it a dark black or a yellow or however you want. But I just love the look of those circles, so I'm going to put circles up here too. And it doesn't matter, just however they fit and whatever size you want. Oh, look how we're coming along. The only thing we need to finish now is our leaves. So let's come along, let's go to our leaves and let's draw that center line. Now this line goes from end to end of your leaf. But you know what? My leaf looks like that's the end. I'm going to, don't make these straight lines. Make these kind of fluid moving lines. See, that made it look like that leaf might be moving. And it probably is a little bit in the wind. See, these are just graceful, curvy lines. Now this one, the way it came out, looks like it's pointed that way. So let's do that. This one kind of looks like it might be doing that. Look how that makes that look more leaf-like. Now that one's just a curve this way, but this one looks like it might be curving that way. Just work with what you drew, what your hand drew. Look at that. There's my lines. Now, let's put our little vein lines in that we had here. These don't show up too well in this. I made my leaves really dark when I did this one, and I think they're too dark. So on my new one, I'm going to make them a little lighter. But again, you know, that's one neat thing. When you do your own pictures, you can do them the way you want to. So I'm going to put veins in here. And you can, or you can leave it plain if you want. Now, the veins on a flower or leaf usually go into the center, they meet, and then they go back to the other side like that. See how that is? They come in here and meet like a V almost. So let's do that on all of them. Again, make these kind of curvy lines. Let me show you. Don't do a straight line like this. You can. But look how that looks like. It doesn't really look like a leaf. If you do a curvy line like this, it looks like the leaf is a little curvy too. Instead of it just being flat drawn. See how much better that looks than a leaf that you did this with? You can do this if that's what you want your flower to look like. But this looks neater. And since I did that, I'm going to have to erase it, aren't I? But that's all right. See, that's why we draw lightly. If we don't like something, we don't have to scrap the whole picture. We can just erase. So now I'm going to make them curvy. And however many you have, that's up to you. How far down they go, that's up to you. And really, if you want them straight instead of curvy, it's your flower. But if you want it to look more natural and neat, you'll put a little curve to it. Yeah, there we go. So let's get the rest of the leaves with their veins in them. Okay. Have you got all your leaves in? If not, stop the video and get all your leaves done before we move on to the next step. Now, the next step, you have to decide, am I going to make this a pencil drawing? Or am I going to color it in like I did this one? Now, if this is going to be a pencil drawing, in fact, I think I'll show you on another sheet because I know I want to color mine in and I don't want to change it. I'm going to show you on here, if it's a pencil drawing, what you need to do. And real quick, I'll draw a sketchy flower here. This won't be very good because I'm drawing it quick. Now, I'm not going to be real picky about what it comes out like. Now, you notice when I took my time how much better my flower came out? Take your time when you're drawing. Why draw if you're going to hurry through it? The reason you draw is because you like to draw. So don't hurry when you're doing a drawing, like I am here. And you can tell that because I'm hurrying, this flower doesn't look near as good as that flower I took my time with. I'm not fixing it, I'm scribbling kind of, but I wanted to show you how to finish your flowers if you decide this is just going to be a pencil drawing and I am not going to add any other color to it. This is going to be it. So the first thing you'll need to do, if this is just a pencil drawing, now remember, if you're going to color it, don't worry about this part. This is just for you that are stopping here. You need to darken your outlines of any line that you want to keep and not erase. You need to darken it. Now, usually with pencil drawings, you don't have to be quite as picky about extra lines. They usually don't look that bad just being there. But if you have a lot of extra lines you don't like, say there was a line here that came out of your circle or something, you're going to want to get rid of it. And you might actually want to get rid of the extra lines before you darken some of it, because it's easy to erase lines that you didn't want to erase. Then after you've darkened everything, decide if there's places that need to be really dark. Like I want the center of my flower to be dark, so I'm going to go in and fill it in and make it dark, like that. Did you want the edges of your flower to be dark? Go in now and color it in with your pencil. This is the time, this is kind of what we call shading. We haven't gotten into shading really, and we will do that more at a later stage of our drawing. But right now it's okay if there's a spot you think should be dark. Go ahead and make it dark. And you might want to add just a little bit of shading, usually towards the center of your flower. It gets darker. So very lightly, you might want to make that darker. See how I'm just making that a little bit darker. And you'll want to do that all the way through your picture. There, see how that's starting to come out neat in the middle though? That little bit of shading and those little darker lines will make your drawing look like artwork. And you know, there's a lot to be said for just pencil drawings. Now, we haven't done a lot of studying, as I said, about shading and things for pencil drawings. It takes a while for us to get to all that, but you could do this part now. So, if you're stopping now at a pencil drawing, go through your whole picture and do that. You may want to decide that your stems are a little darker or lighter, darker probably, than your flower. So you may want to go in and color in your stems. Now, I'm not being real picky here, and there are methods that we can color in differently, which we're not worrying about today. This part works. I will say, if you want to make it smooth, do some little circles even. It takes a long time to do little circles. But if you want this to be real smooth, you can go through and do tiny little circles over it, and it will take away those lines that look like they're lines. See how that smoothed it out? There we go. And then you have your leaf, and you can do the same kind of thing in here. You can shadow towards the stem, maybe a shadow a little bit at the ends. And there you go. So do that all the way through that drawing. And then you'll be done. Oh, and don't forget to sign your name in the corner. And hang it or put it in your book or cut it out. Now, we're going to move now to the section where if you want to color it to be something like what I did here.